Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to another Tech Talk session. We are about to dive into an exciting discussion, and yeah, I think that's gonna change your career, especially for all the developers out here in our audience today. I am Tripti Sinha, your host from Tech Jobs Fair, and today we are joined by Mr. Vilva Athiban. He is a senior engineer at Omio. He is passionate about exploring the wide edges of technology. You can see him giving talks, workshops, building OSS tools, and creating vlogs, and of course, YouTube videos occasionally. When not before the laptop, he is into traveling and some adrenaline sports. So, hi, Vilva. Welcome to our talk session. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Tripti. Thank you for the intro. I'm just excited to be here and I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. So we're very thrilled to have you today here. And today's session is all about understanding and seizing the total opportunity to explore React Strict DOM, which is the live coding. And yeah, I think before we get into our topic and, take a moment to like unravel your extraordinary journey so far in the tech world. So if you could just enlighten us with your little maybe you know a little more about yourself and your journey in tech so far.
Sure. I'm from a non computer science background, and I started like everybody else. I got a campus placement, and I started my tech journey. But after I came in, I got interested. Then initially, I started with mainframes, then Java, then C++ in an MNC. Then I quit my job, joined a startup. Then it has been like a roller coaster. I've been in the front end, then in the back end, then full stack. Then I moved into platform teams. Last 4 years, I've been into front end platforms for 3 years, and right now I'm into back end platforms or more like full stack platforms for past 1 year. So it's like a interesting journey, mostly self taught, but yeah, I'm happy about it.
That's amazing, and I guess that's a quite an experience that you've shared. But before we get into and dive into this session, I really want to understand that we usually see developers are the person who work behind the camera, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very I guess out of the box to see a developer who is a speaker. So I really want to know your journey and the relation between the two, that you being a developer, that come out there and you're a speaker as well. So if you could just tell us a little more about that journey of yours and how you got into speaking.
Sure. That's a funny thing. So I never had stage fear because back in school days, I used to be a stand up comedian.
Ah.
I never had a fear to get on the stage, but I was not the studious good kid who goes to the stage for presenting things. Uh, so it was just an accident. I wrote a blog about something in GraphQL and React Bangalore meetup. Kiran Aburi, the organizer, he invited me to talk in one of the meetups. And after my first talk, apparently it went well, and many people started calling me here and there to speak. Then slowly it grew. I found a passion because I'm basically kind of not good in socializing with people. But when I'm the speaker, people make it easy for me to speak to them. So then I started liking going to events as speaker rather than a attendee. That's how it started.
I guess that's really amazing because we do have a lot of aspiring developers who are looking forward to kickstart their career and be a developer in this tech growing world, right? And it's really good to have someone from the industry who can come out there and speak about how the industry for developers look like and how they can start their journey and everything. So yeah, I guess it's a really good connection that you being a developer, you're also a speaker. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and joining us for today's session. So I just want to have a little more understanding about the topic that we have today. So is a React strict DOM a component library?
No. React Strict DOM is not directly a component library, but it makes building reusable component libraries a bit more easier for people. Like you can build reusable component libraries with single code, but for multiple platforms, and that is going to get a lot easier with React Strict DOM.
Okay. So how does it help in transferring the tech industry? Like,
So basically we have been fighting, like it's not a new thing into the tech industry, it's been there for a while, where few companies have custom solutions within their own companies. Like they write one code and they execute it in all platforms. Like one code runs in web, android and iOS. However, there was no particular standard or like a common way for people to do this until now, which is solved by React Strict DOM. Because even though you have your local setup within your company, you have to maintain it. But with React Strict DOM, there's no more maintenance trouble, because it's just going to be maintained by Facebook and it's just going to be the best. And you can just use it and reuse it. So that's how it will change the industry.
okay, so how does it have been different, like in before and right now? How is it different?
Before that, like I said, always we will have to manage the single code combinations ourselves. Like we need to write the configuration such a way that React Native picks .native files and web picks up .tsx files usually. And sometimes it's like a mismatch. Sometimes you will have to maintain two versions of the same code, even though other parts are similar. Just for one component, you will have to maintain two versions of the same component.
Mhm.
So sometimes it gets troubled. However, with this new library, it's going to be simplified. You don't have to worry about what happens behind the hood. You're just going to use it. So that's the difference, major difference.
So is it like very user friendly for all the developers who are, getting into the industry? Or like do
Yes.
you need like an experience to, apply
Um,
it?
No, I think it's going to be beginner friendly, because before, at least if you are a web React developer, if you have to work on React Native, you will have to do some learning in React Native.
Uh-huh.
But right now, if you just know HTML and React, you can build an app which runs in web, Android and iOS. So it makes things easier for developers to come into the industry rather than adding one more thing to learn.
Ah, that's amazing. So is it like do you need a lot of time to build it, or is it like ready to be used? Are there any advantages or disadvantages of it?
So it's still experimental, so I wouldn't say it's ready to be used. However, it's good to invest in it right now, because Facebook is already using it in production. It's
Okay.
experimental for the public, but it is being used by a very big application like Facebook already in production. And they have said that they are going their future of the future interest of Facebook is towards this library. So I think this will be the next big thing, and it's good to get on early.
Is there any disadvantages so far?
Um, with disadvantages, I think in terms of component building, it's good, but when it comes to application building, there could be some disadvantages when your application have to behave completely different between web and the native parts. Like not all apps, for example, if it's an e-commerce app, it's going to behave exactly in the web and in the native parts. But there are few apps which are like totally different between web and native. There it's not going to help you, it's going to be more trouble than help.
Right. And also, I would just want to ask a simple question, for especially for the audience who are not from the developer community or having like a developer background. What exactly is a React Strict DOM, and how does it come in use in applications?
So it's just a polyfill. To be very simple or very in a single line, React Strict DOM is just a polyfill.
Mhm.
And by polyfill I mean, um, you write your code in HTML, and internally for the corresponding HTML, it replaces it with the React Native code for Android apps on iOS apps. We'll see that more detail when we are going through the slides. I have like proper diagrams and stuff there, so it will be more easier when we go there.
Great. So, I guess I think that'll come in use now if you can share some suitable use cases.
Hmm. So the major use case I could see is building design systems. So no matter whether your application is going to be different in web and mobile, web and native apps, or no matter what's going to happen, building a design system, a single design system which will work for all platforms, is the most big use case I see for this particular library.
Nice. So, like you mentioned about the slides, could you tell us a little more about that? The
No,
slides.
I mean I have slides to share actually, so that one I'm
Oh, that would be great. I think you can share them.
yeah. Maybe then I'll start with the slides.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Why can't I share my? Yeah, I found it. And I also have some code, so I think I'll take over from here, and maybe we can continue the Q and A after the things.
Yeah, definitely.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you gave me good introduction, so I wouldn't have to go into this anymore. Uh, so before getting strict, I mean before getting into React strict DOM, we will have to go through some basics of the React world. That is,
Definitely.
React world, it has like a component, right? Like we write a component in React world which gets converted into HTML. That's how it works. But what we write, though it looks similar to HTML, it's not HTML as such. It is JSX. It's called JSX. And anything we write in React gets converted into a function. It's not directly converted into HTML. However, the browser understands only HTML. So how does that work? How does browser understands HTML from a JavaScript function and translates it? That's where something called React DOM comes into place. So whatever code we write in React is called React Virtual DOM, and that gets converted into HTML using a package or library called React DOM. And this particular React DOM is a library which has capabilities of reading JSX. So React DOM doesn't get hello world; it gets this function as the input. That is the compiled JSX, and that is being converted into HTML. This is how basically React works. This is how the web applications in the React world works. So what few people thought, why not? Anyway, the React virtual DOM is independent, right? It doesn't matter whether React DOM is converting into HTML or not. React virtual DOM is an independent working system where you write a component and it is being converted into JSX, which is nothing but JavaScript functions or JavaScript objects. Then somebody came with a crazy idea that why can't we do something like React DOM but for native apps? That's how React Native came into picture. We still write the same code, we still write the same virtual DOM, but now what happens? React Native, instead of React DOM, React Native reads the JSX, and instead of converting into HTML, it converts it into iOS and Android native components. Like if you write a button in virtual DOM, React DOM will read the button and convert it into a HTML button, whereas React Native will convert it into a iOS or Android button, which is the native button. Then somebody went even further, and that person is behind the creating of React strict DOM. I forgot his name is Nicholas. He used to work with Twitter. He created something called React Native Web, and he's creating React strict DOM. He moved from Twitter to Facebook and started creating React strict DOM. So what
Mhm.
this person did, he went one step ahead. Yeah, right, we write something in virtual DOM and it is being converted into iOS or Android in React Native. Why can't we reuse the same JSX and convert it into HTML? That's how something called React Native Web was born. So, though React Native is converting the virtual DOM into iOS and Android native elements, it also sends the copy of JSX to React Native Web, and React Native Web correspondingly converts those React Native components into HTML. That's how React Native Web worked. To have a more detailed understanding, if you see, this is React Native, And element API, props API, style API, event API, all these are common for React Native. And usually they are converted into native apps in the left side, like in the red side. However, there's a new library which is 70 kilobytes called React Native Web. If you see clearly, based on the elements API, based on the elements, it calls something called create element, and then this create element creates div, main, span, code, image, etc. based on the input element. Similarly for props, similarly for styles, similarly for events. So basically, this React Native Web lets React Native work in its own way, but also
Mm,
gets a copy of the components and converts it into web. So now we write one code. It works in Android, iOS through React Native, and web through React Native Web.
mm,
However, there are some problems with React Native Web. First major problem is platform specific consideration. That is, when you write your code in native and you compile it for web, this limits you within native specific consideration. You can't use everything that is available in the web in the native side. You can only
oh,
use the React Native code and not use the web code directly. It just compiles to web. So though
mhm,
it makes life bit easier, sometimes you are just blindfolded, or your
mm,
hands are tied that you can't bring in all the web specific considerations there.
yeah.
Next is limited native features. Say for example, if you have something called flex, if you give position flex for a div, in React Native, by default, flex is flex column, but in web, it is flex row. However, what you expect when you write for React Native web should convert it automatically into flex row, but that doesn't happen. And also browser compatibility issues. So this is bit of a hassle to write in one platform and convert it into other platform, because you are now bound between within one platform that you can't use the power of the other platform.
Yeah.
Then people was trying to find a solution for this, and that's when they found React Strict Down, RST. What is RST? RST is very simple. It's just a JavaScript polyfill of web elements. It can be a h1, h2, a tag, p tag, span. It can be anything. It just polyfills those web elements into React Native. Until today you can use only text, image, or view, these type of React Native elements into React Native. But with RSD you can use web elements into React Native. And also stylex. We'll not cover more about stylex, but basically stylex is similar to styled components. However, styled components is compiled into JavaScript. Stylex is compiled into CSS itself, and it is used by Facebook for its styling. It's more like a component based styling system. So they combine this two into React Native to create elements or components. That's the simple explanation of RST. So how RST works? We still write the code in Virtual DOM. It's the same format of React Virtual DOM.
Mm-hmm.
However, React Strict DOM takes the input and sends it to two different React Strict DOMs. One is React Strict DOM Web, and other is React Strict DOM Native. And React Strict DOM Web internally uses React DOM to convert it into HTML. And React Strict DOM Native internally uses React Native to convert the components into Android and iOS. So if you see here, now we write our code in HTML or something similar to HTML, and that gets automatically converted into the um, proper components based on different systems. And also this gives us power to reuse almost all the HTML elements. This way we don't compensate or compromise in any of the platform. Both the platforms, both React Native as well as web, gets its complete power through one code instead of compromising. To have a more detailed architecture, if you see, we have two things: one React Strict DOM Native and React Strict DOM Web. However, the libraries now are so small. React Native Web was 70 kbs, but here Web is 4 kbs and React Native is 10 kbs, a small library. And it internally maps. It takes div And if it's React Native Web, it just keeps it as div, and it takes div. And if it's React Native React Strict DOM native, it converts the div into view. It converts pan into text. So the similar thing like React Native Web, but in more better way. That's what React Strict DOM is. And also now we have new better event manipulation or event handling in React Native, and this particular library takes advantage of the new architecture of React Native as well. Therefore, overall enables us to build better code.
Mhm.
If you see inside the code, actually it's very simple. It has all the HTML elements listed, and for the corresponding HTML element it has the React Native element. So if you use aside in the code, for HTML it will be aside, for React Native it will be view. So it's just like a simple one-to-one mapping which is happening within the code. I went into the source code, and this is a screenshot of the source code.
Okay.
This is how things work. So we saw how things work orally. Let's see some code. This screen is visible, right?
Yes.
So I didn't do anything special here. I just created or bootstrapped a new project with Expo, a React Native project, and installed the dependencies like React Native Strict DOM and all those things, and made
Yeah.
some table configs for web to support web. That's it. So I have a basic setup here for running React Strict DOM. Now let's see how we can use Strict DOM. I'll comment this, the existing code, and also this. First thing is we are going to use HTML, right? So we will import HTML from React Strict DOM. And what I'll pass is HTML dot h1 hello, and save it. You see here I just wrote hello. In the iOS simulator you can see it's in the left top, and in the web also it's in the left top. What happens
Yeah.
now when I wrote this code? This html.h1 is converted into element like html element h1 for the web, and the
Mhm.
heading element for iOS internally. Now if I want to style it, I'll import css, which is the stylex component. Const styles from stylex equal to css of, and for h1 I'll give some color red, position fixed, top 50, left 30, and I'll apply the style to it. Style equal to styles from stylex dot h1. Oh, sorry, I forgot to use create. Now if I save it, now if you see my both the platforms updated its code itself, and it is using hello in the red color.
Yeah.
By this we can write one code and execute it in native as well as web platforms.
Mhm.
One beautiful thing, like though this
Interesting.
can be a new feature, this can fail, right? Like because it might involve a lot of time for users to adopt it or migrate it. So people
Mm.
might be reluctant. They have a solution for this also. You really don't have to migrate it. This can coexist. You can use your current applications, and within that this can just be a part.
Mhm.
Now if I save this, my normal normal React Native elements are working. So say imagine I have a current app which is using React Native directly, and I'm
Mhm.
interested in React Strict DOM. I don't have to delete my app and replace it. I can just run my current app and start building the new components from using React Strict DOM and slowly migrate part by part. So
Mhm.
this scalability of using this application in a bigger organization.
That's interesting. Really, really interesting to see. So, do
I
you have some more?
Yeah, so basically next steps is to just play around with it. For now,
Uh-huh.
don't use it in production.
Mhm.
However, starting to write components out of it or npm packages out of it is a good time, because I see a big future out of this particular library. And I think I'm done with it.
Thank you so much. I think that was really interesting, and it was pretty self-explanatory. And
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I just wanted to understand from, like, that's from the back end side, like what you showed us, right? From the front end side, like you mentioned, like right now you just like give one input and it goes both on your, the app and the domain on the web, right?
Mhm.
So but earlier it was like you had to write two different things for the app and the web.
Yeah.
And so from the viewer side, right, from the front end, like whatever we see on the web, is it like the same thing that reflects on the app, like even the interface and everything, or it's just the features that's there on the web and the app?
So for a user, that depends, right? But say if the developer wants it to be same for the app
Mhm.
and for web, for the user it will be the same. It's
Oh,
just about the question of the developer to decide whether he have to show the same thing to both. But
yeah,
if he writes the same code, the
yeah.
experience is going to be the same between both the platform.
Great. So, another thing, so initially when, all this developing started and everything, when you started like, coding and everything, so was it like you used to code for web first and then understand and then figure out for the app? Or
Um,
was it simultaneously working for both the platforms?
in if you are working for a company, then I think the company decides it. But if
Okay.
it's like a personal project which I'm working on, I always
Mm-hmm.
build it for web first, because
Yeah.
making a person install app is like a big thing, big task. But having a website and letting people access it is like a simple thing. Like you can just keep a QR code and people can scan and already see it.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
initially to validate and to get feedbacks, I build it for web. Then once I'm sure this is how I'm going to proceed, then I start
Mm.
building the version.
So it's like a web is first like a test and trial, and then
Yeah.
if goes well, then we come and develop the app.
But right now it's very easy because I build web, I try it, I get feedback and test it with users, and when I'm
Mhm.
satisfied, I just save and build the get the Android and iOS apps as well,
Yeah,
without
there's
much.
always this testing beta version of everything nowadays.
Yeah,
So you just get the feedback and then, and everything is so quick nowadays. So
yeah.
I think before anything pops up or before we know about something new in the market, there's already app in the Play Store and the App Store. So yeah, I think we know how fast, everything's growing. So yeah. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think I just have one last question for you. What
Mhm.
about the performance of the strict DOM?
Like I said, like I showed in the uh, slides, we
Mhm.
have the existing platform is like 70 kb, but the new platform, whatever I showed you, is like only 14 kbs, and 14 kb is not a big size for the
Yeah.
advantages it gives. So I think, and in terms of performance, there's not going to be any bottlenecks, because in the web it is still HTML that is running. It's just going to get converted into HTML. Nothing is going to change. And in
Mhm.
the apps, React Native is still running. It's just like an abstraction for the developers. So in terms of performance, it shouldn't affect really much.
Great. So I think it was pretty insightful session, and especially with your presentation and slides, it was
Mm.
very, very explanatory. So I just want to thank you so much for your active participation again. But unfortunately, we do have some time constraints, and because of which we have to bring this session to an end. But of course, we will come back again in the future with, I think, much more exciting. Slides and topics and questions. So, before we end the session for today, would you like to add anything from your end to our fellow developers?
I think just try this out. This maybe there may be simple hassle, if somebody wants help in setting up the basic React setup, React strict DOM setup, then they can feel free to contact me in social media. Otherwise, I encourage every front end developer to try this. It's like a magic, and that's it. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vilva. And also a quick update for all our tech bees. Like if you want to build your career in tech industry, we have multiple events coming up, both virtual and physical. So if you are a job seeker, you can just log on to techjobsfair.com and get your free tickets. So yeah, I guess thank you everyone for joining us today. Until next time, take care and have a great day. Have a great night. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Vilva, for joining us.
Thank you.